Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is To Back or Not to Back. We're going to be going over a whole bunch of crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter and on Gamefound, and speaking of which, while I've been doing this series for a long time, disclaimer that I did recently take a job with Gamefound, so take that into account as we go through this. Now, starting off the bat with our Cult of the New, no, not Cult of the New, Cult of the Now. Starting off the bat with our Cult of the Now, which is where we go ahead and take a look at an currently available retail offering, where you can go ahead and get a game now as opposed to waiting 6 months, a year and a half, 2.5 years, 3 years, and you're wondering why you backed that thing in the first place. Over on Game Nerds, we have Pacific Rails as their deal of the day. This thing will end in, well, depending on when you're watching this video, it may already be over, but it's a good enough deal that I kind of want to share it, so we'll see. But Pacific Rails, a $45 game currently available for $17 over on Game Nerds. That's a deal. I mean, you have to go ahead and either pay shipping or add it to your cart, or they have a hold feature. No, this video is not sponsored by Game Nerds. I just use them for various things because they're very, very, very good at what they do. But Pacific Rails over on Game Nerds, that's your Cult of the Now, where you can go ahead and take a look at an available game without having to wait for the future and wonder if it's good and all that stuff. Pacific Rails, there's reviews and ratings and videos all out about this currently available retail game right now. And with that, let's go ahead and start off the bat going through the project, starting off the bat with the campaigns that are not funding, of which we have a few. We have Expeditionary Company over on Kickstarter, $26,000, 365 backers, 23 days to go. This is almost more of an RPG experience where you're going to have a map and a whole bunch of books as you wander through this, trying to go on encounters, as you're tasked with guarding the various pathways in between the cities, and you have to go through a bit of an RPG adventure. That's what it is. Believe they have it over on Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator. They have it somewhere where you can go ahead and try this one. It's going to run you roughly €75, 75 euro for the base pledge over there, and then I think that's the only pledge they have. They have an early bird, but that's no longer available, and that's Expeditionary Company. Almost more of an RPG than a board game, but a lot of books and content and materials over there. We have History of the Ancient Seas. This is a relaunch campaign. This probably will fund based on where it's at. $28,000, 131 backers. This is their second time launching on Kickstarter, and I think the high price point is really just a large barrier here. It's hard at the end of the day. The price points come in for this game. This is a set of 3 games, a set of 3 tactical games, where you have a 79 euro for, or roughly $81 for one of them, going up to 91 for 2, and then 101 for 3, and a 203 for all part 1, 2, and 3 for the whole entire thing. So basically, not a small amount of money to go ahead and jump in on this set, which I think that's the main barrier to entry over here. When you're looking at campaigns or options where you can buy a $60 game for, well, a $50, $60 game, and you're looking at this set of 3 for $200, I think it's just a hard sell as far as getting people on board, which is why I think they currently only have 131 backers, even though it may well be a great game. But yeah, it's probably going to fund. 24 days to go with only $6,000. I think they'll cross that line, but we'll see. We'll see. Going from there to Tales of War, which I sadly don't think this one will fund. At 75 backers, $5,000 out of a $40,000 goal. This is one that's interesting because I remember looking at when I was covering campaigns coming up for November, and that's not true, for September, I remember looking at this one and thinking that I was surprised it had 2,700 people following the campaign page, which I just, for no information about the actual game, or very minimum information, I was surprised how many followers they had. Unfortunately, it looks like those followers are not converting. This is going to be a tactical game, high strategy in terms of just a more direct strategy, not like rolling dice. As you place your units, as you place the map, as you go back and forth drafting the terrain and wander around in a kind of skirmish game where you're going to have your units abstracted on the board, or you have the various units, the various red unit tiles, the blue unit tiles, putting them down on the board and trying to navigate back and forth, utilizing their abilities in this tactical combat game. For whatever reason, it has not picked up a following. I think it could be the price point offhand. Price point's not terrible, but $81 for 78 for the early bird, 81 for the Tales of War Kickstarter edition for a game that has tokens as opposed to miniatures. It's just a higher price point given the content that you're looking at offhand. I think that I don't know. I'm curious. This one has. While I'm not surprised this one's struggling, I am surprised it only has 75 backers, especially with 2,700 people following the campaign beforehand. But we'll see. That's Tales of War over on Kickstarter. Then we have one more in the not funding category. We have Proxy War, the indie strategy board game of modern wars. 58 backers, $3,000. This is another kind of a skirmish game, Proxy War, based on a lot of modern leaders or whatnot as you go through a strategy game with dynamic resource management and trade system, simultaneous action decision, open-ended negotiations, and dice modified battles. This is another one where I think the production value is just hurting it. Overall, when you look at this, I mean, the price point is actually not bad. Price point comes in at roughly, where are we over here? Price point's $29 for the game, which is fairly accessible, but the downside of it is, like, while the price point's great, the 58 backers is just, I think this game doesn't look great, and I think they're having a hard time pulling people in from that stance. And that's Proxy War over on Kickstarter. Which brings us to the update category, where we have one minor update. Updates where we just take a look at campaigns that are ending shortly, and in this case it's NANOLITH, Cyberpunk RPG board game. These I picked just based on whatever my current mood is. If you want more of a update of campaigns ending in the last 7 days, I recommend checking out Rumen Board, Chris George over on Rumen Board. He generally goes through all the campaigns as they hit their last week. So if you want all your information in the last week where it potentially has the most accuracy, make sure to check out and follow Rumen Board. But in any case, moving on to NANOLITH Cyberpunk RPG board game. This one I talked about already. It's closing in on $200,000. It'll almost certainly cross that with 48 hours to go. I'm guessing maybe 210, 215, we'll see. But overall, this is one that they just continue to unlock more and more stretch goals. I highly recommend checking out the campaign video. Again, I talked about this campaign already. They seem to be pulling in a lot of attention, doing a great job doing a great job of basically what they're offering here, both in terms of the amount of content and the price point for that content seems fairly reasonable. But overall, this one looks great. They've had a bunch of stretch goals, things unlocked, more and more unlocked as the campaign went through, upgrades, dice, linen finish, more scenarios, all these things slowly being sleeves for all the cards over there. So they have a whole bunch of things that they've been unlocking throughout the campaign, which is why we're just going through this in a very, very brief update. But really, if you're interested in the game, highly recommend watching the video. Spend the 2.5 minutes to watch this video. It will either pull you in or it will not. Either way, you'll know more information. But that is NANOLITH Cyberpunk RPG, the board game. Which brings us to the new campaigns. Making very good time over here, or alternatively too fast time. But making our way to the new campaign, starting off with Rivet Wars Reloaded. Rivet Wars Reloaded from Steamforged Games, which is going to close in 4 days. This is like another Steamforged Games very short campaign, pulling in 1,100 backers, $258,000, and I'm kind of surprised, honestly. The original Rivet Wars campaign from Command brought in like around 2,400 backers and roughly $550,000. Granted, that was at a time when crowdfunding was less oversaturated, so there was less competition, but also less people on the platform. But I am surprised that Reloaded is not doing quite as well. Overall, this is a good this is and was a good game system, and the Reloaded option on top of it is offering you both new content to returning backers as well as content for new backers, giving you both options over here. By the way, Steamforged, this is not a great quote over here, and all these quotes for context, these quotes from Board Game Co are pulled from my video, I believe. And while I do like the game, this is a game that I've genuinely enjoyed and thought was a great game. It's very, like, throw an exclamation point on the end of it. But I really like Steamforged. I really like Steamforged, but I really like Rivet Wars overall. The rest of my quotes are better, but either way, overall, I really enjoy Rivet Wars. I have the whole collection for the original campaign. I find it to be a light, accessible war game that has a lot of strengths while also being on the lighter side, and understand that as you go into it. But Rivet Wars Reloaded takes that, and they're re-offering the game with, they're relaunching the game, although keeping it accessible for those who have the original campaign. So there's upgrade packs of the new content for those who want it. There's a veteran pledge over here, $141, which gives you just all the new stuff. And then there's pledges for $151 for the core pledge, which gives you the Rivet Wars and the Vanguard expansion, the Viking Hero pack, and all the unlocks. And then we have the gameplay all-in for $400, which is not an insignificant amount. And then $450 for the deluxe all-in. That's a lot of money for Rivet Wars. Now, Rivet Wars is not cheap if you want all the stuff. There's a lot of stuff over here. There's a reason. I mean, if you saw my video on the game, there's a giant bucket full of stuff that I have, and that's not even close to all of it. I have a lot of Rivet Wars content, and this is basically, re-offering you all that Rivet Wars content. Again, it's and more. They're offering you more. They're offering you the original Rivet Wars. They're changing up some of the rules. They're streamlining the cards. They have all that upgrade kit stuff. They changed the color of the miniatures. They've changed the bases. They've added some more things to make the game overall more streamlined and accessible. And then they're also offering things like a campaign or solo campaign or whatnot, as well as an entirely new faction for the game. And so that's what we have over here for Rivet Wars. It's a, again, light, accessible skirmish game. It is on the lighter end, but past that, it is a good skirmish game. I highly recommend checking it out if you are interested in a light skirmish game. If the word light skirmish game scares you off, then this is light, so understand that this might not be for you if you're looking for something on the heavier end. But overall, this Rivet Wars, they have the new faction. They have the, the Vanguard boxes, 10 allied miniatures, 10 blight, 10 stat cards. So we have some more of the various miniatures and stat cards over here. And then over here we have, down here, we should have the new faction, the Nomoan expansion, which gives you, again, all these are included in the various pledge levels, you can check them out. But the Nomoan expansion is the new expansion, giving you more of an underground focused expansion that pop up from beneath the ground, left, right, and center, as they attack various people. This guy looks cool. The Phoenix air mech looks very cool. The Helios pilot plug, the Titan mech. Again, fantastic miniatures, and they're continuing that general trend of the Rivet Wars. And then they're using the term Rivetverse, so I assume they have more content planned for the game. In future things, we'll see. But yeah, you have the Air Force expansion, a whole bunch. Again, this is a very solid, very accessible skirmish game. Really enjoyed this one, and I'm highly looking forward to the solo campaigns as they go through that. Just more and more miniatures. There's no way I can stop scrolling, but there's a lot of content. I mean, yes, you are paying a lot of money for Deluxe All-In. but there's a lot of content. As far as should you back or should you not, this one's a harder one than usual for me to call. Generally, SteamForge games strongly hold their value. Generally, when I'm talking about a SteamForge games campaign, I'm like, hey, it's going to hold its value. I'm not worried about that at all. Rivet Wars is a slightly harder one to call because if you look at the original Rivet Wars sells for less than people paid for it on the secondhand market for the most part. So Rivet Wars is one of the command campaigns that actually does not hold its value quite as much. So I'm kind of juggling between how Rivet Wars is doing, and also 1,000 backers, 1,100 backers is not a huge amount. And yes, that number will jump to close to 1,500 by the time the campaign ends, but it's still not a massive following for this campaign, for this game. And so I would say that I am more mixed on whether this will or won't hold its value. It's a decent amount of money. SteamForge games holds their value. Rivet Wars historically is not. There's not a ton of demand for the game. This one falls more in the middle for me. I'm just not confident either way. It could hold its value, it could not. I have too many factors on both sides to be able to really call this one well. I would say if you're interested, go ahead and back it. Understand that you're paying a lot of money for something and you may not be able to get it all back. There doesn't seem like there's a ton of demand for the Rivet Wars franchise, even with them reloading the game. Moving on to Legacy of You. Build the canals, repel the barbarians, and rise to fame in the solo-only campaign game set in ancient China. This is coming to you from Garphill Games. 2,800 backers, $188,000 raised. This is a typical Garphill Games Kickstarter, wherein they're offering you a decent price point, but not as cheap as you can get it online, depending on where you are from. Those are the keywords, depending on where you are from. They're going to be offering you a few extras as well. So that promo pack, which gives you cards for this game, for Hadrian's Wall, and for Raiders of Scythia. And so they have that over there as far as the reasons to back the game. And of course, support, get it early, all those things. But overall, Legacy of You, like it says already, is a solo campaign game. You're going to be going through a sequence of campaigns as you go ahead and try to stop any of the various lose conditions. Stop your village from being overrun by barbarians. Stop the flood from overtaking the village. And then there's one more way you lose that I can't remember exactly. Maybe running out of cards. I don't remember. There's another way you lose. There's 3 ways you lose the game, and ultimately only one way you win, where you finish building the last canal section before the flood overtakes you and all those other bad things happen. You're going through basically a solo optimization puzzle as you try to figure out how to utilize resources, how to cash in cards, when to burn cards, when to keep cards. You're trying to go through this overall using the same general graphic design that Garphill Games has been using for their games. This is the same art, I believe, as Hadrian's Wall and Raiders of Scythia and all that, but same artist, I should say, not necessarily same art. But overall, yeah, this is Raiders of You. This is going to do well. Garphill Games games do well, and this is one where I actually am compelled more so than usual, even though, speaking of the should you back and should you not, generally Garphill Games Kickstarters do fall in the category of, while I recommend their games, they are well liked, well rated, and well sought after. In general, their Kickstarters are usually less of an incentive to back as far as the price point versus what you get. Usually you're paying a bit more extra compared to retail. They price them fairly, but they don't rely on FOMO. The downside is when you don't rely on FOMO, that's another way of saying we're not giving you a reason to back now. Because if you're giving a reason to back now, that's the FOMO part. So they kind of, again, I respect them as a company. I think they do not push people or incentivize them to backing. I may well back this one. I'm interested enough in the game that after enough campaigns of me saying, hey, Garphill Games is not giving you a great reason to back, maybe eventually I support them because, you know, I appreciate the fact that they don't rely on FOMO. It's a weird trade-off. It's that weird trade-off. If you don't give people a reason to back, well, then why should they back? But if you do give people a reason to back, that is otherwise FOMO. It's a weird trade-off where you kind of can't win either way. Because if you do the right thing, you're inherently giving me less of a reason to back the campaign, so I should reward you by backing the campaign. It's a weird trade-off. Anyways, but I may well back this campaign because I do give them a hard time for doing what I think is the right thing as far as being a consumer-friendly approach to everything. In any case, but yeah, as far as should you back or should you not, again, more of a toss-up. It depends on if you care about the 2022 Kickstarter promo pack, and depends on if you would hunt it down later. Overall, the price point is reasonable, but you can otherwise wait and get it cheaper online. So if you're not in a rush and you don't care about the promo pack, I would just wait and get it online. Otherwise, go ahead and back it now, support the creator, get the game early, all of those other factors. That's Legacy of You from Garphill Games. Then we have Space Explorers, Age of Ambition, and Prehistories Evolutions expansion. This is from 20th Century Games, and this is basically a set of 2 expansions, 2 modular-based expansions for 2 different games, and then also all-in prices for all those games as well. A bunch of options over here. You can check out the individual videos over here. They have individual breakdown videos as far as different options to watch the video on the Space Explorers content, as well as the Prehistories Evolutions content. Basically, these 2 games, I've not played Space Explorers, but I have heard it compared to Splendor multiple times, which is already intriguing. Prehistories is a polyomino game, which is a lighter, accessible, gateway polyomino game, which is trying to place down polyominoes to achieve various goals. You're trying to bid on polyominoes, then place them down to bid on various goals. And Evolutions and Age of Ambition are offering you modular expansions to both of those games, giving you just a few different ways to integrate and mix up the content you have for those games. As far as the price point over here, we have $40 for the all-in for Prehistories. We have $20 for just the new stuff. We have $75 for the all in for Space Explorers, and we have $30 for just the new stuff. And then if you want all the new stuff on its own, it's $50, and if you want all the everything on its own, it's $100. Which brings us to like the whole price point over here aspect, which is basically they're offering you more and more deals the more stuff you get. The more you're willing to shell out and pay for, the better a deal you're getting off the MSRP. If you only need one of the expansions, it's the least compelling aspect. If you need multiple expansions or multiple base games or multiple expansions and base games, then they have a whole bunch of options over here. They actually, oh, they even did this over here. Good for them. Time Travel All In minus Space Explorers base game. Time Travel All In minus Prehistories base game. Good on them. So they really bundled this up so that you have all the possible options on the table as far as any various configuration of base game versus expansion, both expansions, neither expansion, all. They really, I guess the only thing they didn't really do is, no, they do both base games and one expansion. I think the only configuration they didn't do is both base games and one expansion, which is reasonable. That would be very, very, very specific. But anyways, yeah, as far as this over here, just a whole bunch of options as far as what you get, and the main price point discounts are just in that bundling over there as far as these two options. And so yeah, that's Space Histories and Space Explorers and Prehistories. Moving on to Weimar, the Fight for Democracy. 644 backers, $78,000 raised, and a price point that will scare your socks off, but a game that is very compelling despite that. We have $126 over here for the English version, $126 for basically for Weimar, the Fight for Democracy, which is not a small price point on this game. Also, I do know, I'm fully aware of the fact that you can look at a $400 all-in on some expensive game, and it's like, oh, well, it's got miniatures, so that's cool. But you look at a Euro game, and you're like, wow, 126 is just way too much. I mean, it's not necessarily too much. I've also played Splotter games. It's just expensive. It's not necessarily too much. It's expensive. But this is coming from Matthias Kramer, and this is a card-driven game specifically for 4 players. You'll note that this does not say 1 to 4 players. This does not say 2 to 4 players. This says 4 players, and 360 minutes. Understand that there are multiple barriers to entry on this game and whether it's right for you or not. The 4 players, the fact that it's a 6-hour game, and the fact that it's $126, those are all very compelling reasons to both back it or not back it, depending on your player group and your attention span and interest level and all those things. This is a card-driven system. A card-driven system that's from Matthias Kramer, who's done Watergate, a bunch of other games, a lot of design cred under his belt, but overall this is one that, I mean, the game looks good, the game looks intricate, the game looks complex, the game looks like you're fighting a tug-of-war battle in a bunch of different arenas. If you like games like Watergate or Twilight Struggle or any of those card-driven systems, this looks like it's really leaning heavily into that in a very asymmetric 4-player game that just looks, I mean, it's got multiple battlefields, the opinions, you're fighting for both opinions and the streets, you're going through the card-driven system, which means you're playing cards and trying to figure out when to utilize their abilities versus when to use the stats on the cards. Lots of fun things going on. Again, if you like Watergate or Twilight Struggle or is it 1965? I think it's 1965. Whichever, all these card-driven systems, if you like those games, this is going to be giving you more of that. And again, they touch upon the 4-player aspect somewhere here, where they're basically saying, hey, you know, we have the 4-player game, and it's just a 4. And kudos to them, by the way, for leaning into it heavily. Like, they don't hide. We're like, hey, the 4-player issue. At the end of the day, it's a 4-player issue. We could have tried to come up with, you know, a way to have an AI player. We didn't want to. We thought that would not be an ideal experience, so it's a 4-player game. It will come with some solo scenarios, but it's more of a tutorial and or challenge, but it's really just a 4-player game, so you have to want what this game is. That's what you are. You have to want what this game is. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? This is tricky. This is a tricky one as well. This is coming from Spielworxx Games. Spielworxx Games in general don't do a great job holding the value, but it's also coming from Capstone and Skellig and the design chops of Matthias Kramer, and it looks incredible. I could see this one going either way. This is an expensive game, and the real question to me is just what the aftermarket availability and price point is. I couldn't find information on that one, so it does fall into the category of being a risk for me depending on the aftermarket aspect, just how available it is. And so yeah, it depends on the differences between the retail and the Kickstarter, and how available or available at all this game is. With Capstone over there, I assume it will be available. I just don't know to what extent or degree. So I would put this again in a bit of a intriguing game, very expensive game, very interesting, but also a bit of a risk category. We have KeyForge Winds of Challenge. That's not Winds of Challenge, I don't know why I said that. KeyForge Winds of Exchange by Ghost Galaxy Games. Ghost Galaxy is basically the company started by the original Christian Peterson, I want to say, from Fantasy Flight originally, and started his own company, Ghost Galaxy, and they've taken on the KeyForge project. KeyForge was from Fantasy Flight with Richard Garfield and Christian Peterson. Here we go. New company, Christian Peterson, the original founder of Fantasy Flight Games, and Ghost Galaxy basically is taking on KeyForge, where they are rebuilding the program that is needed for this whole for this something generated, programmatically generated decks where you have all these cards and every single deck is 100% unique, and every single, they keep having expansions for KeyForge. I think they had 3 sets until now. They had KeyForge, and then Age of Ascension. Does that sound right? Maybe. And then KeyForge something. They've had a bunch of KeyForge games. This is Winds of Exchange. This is the newest KeyForge system. And they're giving you a whole bunch of reasons to jump in now over here. They talk a lot about the communication, the software, why back now, all of those things over here. They go through all of that. But ultimately, this is your opportunity to dive into KeyForge. And it looks like a lot of people have. With $399,000 raised, 2,144 backers. This is giving you a whole bunch of opportunities to jump into Winds of Exchange at a variety of pledge levels. Over here, Winds of Exchange is a game which you're trying to forge 3 keys. That's the general KeyForge concept. You're trying to forge 3 keys, hence the name KeyForge. You're trying to collect resources. I think you need 6, at which point you forge a key, and then repeat that process twice more, and you win the game. That's basically what's going on in KeyForge. Past that is the card play back and forth, as you use your completely unique deck to go ahead and tackle your opponent, as you try to figure out how to, basically play the game, essentially. So you can get those resources, tackle your opponent, stop them from winning in your completely unique game, and you're completely unique to the point that one of the pledge levels over here will involve you getting your own name on your decks, because that's a thing that you can apparently do as well over on the Gamefound project. This is them diving into the waters, seeing how much demand there is, as well as just, selling the game, because that's what crowdfunding is. We have over here how to win, play cards to use creatures to collect amber, prevent your opponent from collecting amber, start of your turn, spend 6 amber to forge a key, and when you forge your third key, you win. Like I said, KeyForge, that's what's going on over here. They have more information about the actual gameplay, the specific aspects of this particularly Winds of Exchange, which is bringing back a bunch of houses over here. And that's going on over here, which brings us to the pledge levels. You can have how to play by Becca Scott. Then we have the pledge levels. Pledge levels, we have a bunch of options over here. We have the Reaper of Amber, and they have a bunch of options. I mean, their lowest pledge level, I think, is like 50, so like it's not cheap over here. You could get these games, you could get the decks later on the second market. In the general, you could get on the second-hand market. You can also get the games generally at retail. The MSRP will be $12.99, which means price point probably closer to around $9 per deck. They have all that in the FAQ. But over here, we have 12 decks over here. 12 decks, the Exchange playmats, the Winds of Exchange personalized deck if you want that, and the Winds of Exchange personalized playmats. So you have a bunch of options over here. That, I mean, even if you just assume the 12 times 9 over there, what is that? I should know the math, right? 12 times 9 is 108. That sounds right. $108 would be just the rough value of these decks, and that's going to be an extra $42 roughly, plus shipping and all that stuff for the playmat, the personalized deck, and the personalized playmat, which is not bad over there. But as far as you have to check what you want over here, whether you care about the personalized deck, whether you care about any of these various things, whether you care about the playmats. You have to decide what things you care about in any of these pledge levels. You have this Winds of Exchange playmats. Select 2 of the 7 new playmats featuring the Houses of KeyForge Winds of Exchange. Ooh. I want this one over here. No, I want... this is tough. These are all pretty cool. I like these 4 in the middle the most, but they're all pretty cool. Oh, that is tough. These are very cool playmats. I personally find playmats distracting to the actual game, especially with things this colorful, but they're just cool in general. Maybe mouse pads. I think I would... this is tough. I think I'd go with these 2. Maybe. They're all pretty good. This is going to be tough. Either way, personalized playmat as well. As far as a personal playmat matching the name and deck characters of your personalized deck. You're going to have your own personalized name over there. So we'll go with... I should be able to get Alexander Sender Radcliffe III from North Undershire, first of his name, last of his kin. Yeah, I should be able to get something like that on this little space here. That should be easy enough. Anyways, that's over there as far as that. We have Novice of the Crucible, which is the cheapest pledge. This is the entry point. You're going to get 1 starter set as well as 2 decks over here. So there's a starter set plus 2 decks. I don't actually know what's included in the starter set. I should probably check that out. What's included in the starter set? We have the starter set, 2-player starter set. Is this going to be from the original KeyForge, or it looks like the original KeyForge. Nope, this is plus 2 Winds of Exchange decks. I'm curious if this is the original KeyForge starter set or not. I don't know. It has the Ghost Galaxy logo, so I don't know how that plays out over there. But either way, we have 65 for Seeker of Decks, which I believe is 6 decks. That's going to be, 6 decks over here for the Seeker of Decks. Hunter of Shards for 75, which is going to be giving you one exchange mat and 1 play mat and 6 decks. Breaker of Chains for 420, which is giving you a whole lot of ways to spend money over here. 36 decks. Oh my gosh, this is a lot of money. This is a lot of money. And yeah, I haven't played KeyForge. I have played Soulforge, which is a different system, but the same idea. You'll definitely want some variety in deck play, but I don't know if how many decks you'll need. That depends on how all in you are over here. For instance, this person at $750, you are definitely all in on the Winds of Exchange, and you're also getting the Fuzzy Groon, which honestly is worth it for that alone. But yeah, a whole lot of KeyForge options over here as far as everything there, or you can just wait and pick it up down the road. Lots of reviews. Haven't watched the Shut Up and Sit Down. I imagine it's positive, or it probably wouldn't be here. Generally, that's the way it works, by the way. Whenever you see a video on a campaign page, there's a decent chance it leans towards the positive or it's outright positive. The negative ones usually don't make their way to the campaign page. Anyways, moving on to Dawn of Ulos, a role-player tale. Dawn of Ulos, a role-player tale, 1,146 backers, $80,000 raised, 15 days to go. This is from Thunderworks Games, and this is basically almost a choir in the Thunderworks universe. What's it called? What's it called? what is the name, what's the name of their place? Ulos? Is it Ulos? It might be Ulos. Either way, you're going to have Dawn of Ulos, a kind of acquire, stock-taking game, sort of, in which you're basically trying to invest in the various strength of the factions as you place down terrains which are going to alter the strength of the factions every single time. You're trying to play things down to modify the strength, so eventually you'll have clashes between different factions, and you'll see which one wins and which one gets rejected, as you can then go ahead and rebuy their factions as you monitor their strength over here, as well as their endgame spoils points and all that. So you're trying to be mindful of their strength, their spoils, how much territory they control as they continue to grow, every faction having 2 territories that they lean into. This is basically, like I said, if you've played Acquire, you'll see enough of the similarities. Thematically, very, very different. Mechanically, definitely has overlap. This is a set in the role-player universe, which I think is called Ulos. Overall, I've been really enjoying Role-Player Adventures, by the way, which is a complete tangent, but that's completely unrelated. I've just been enjoying it, so I want to talk about it. But anyways, this is Dawn of Ulos. What's in the box? We have $70, $70 retail, $59 US for all of this over here. Bunch of miniatures, bunch of tokens, bunch of map pieces, bunch of playmats, the rule book, always a good thing to have. Then we have Thunderworks exclusive over here. These are going to be harder to get coins. The Metal Favor tokens and the Rift Tile Pack. These are going to be extra options as far as extra things you can get to add to your game that are harder to get your hands on otherwise. So this is going to be one of the main reasons to back the game on Kickstarter, which is if you want the extras over here, as opposed to if you want just the base game. Generally, retail will be cheaper on its own, although you do get some things extra. Why back? We have exclusive items over here. The Metal Favor tokens and Rift Tile Pack will not be available through retail. They'll only be available through TWG, so these are going to be easier to get over here, or you'll have to get it later from them directly. Get the game first, you'll receive Dawn of Ulos at least 1 month, and support a small publisher. So it looks like the primary reason is going to be these extra tokens over here if you want the extra stuff, which will just be harder. The Terrain Rift Tile Pack is free with pledge, and this is going to be $25 for those and metal coins over there. And that's what's going on with Dawn of Ulos. Yeah, this is a Acquire in a set in the Acquire style game set in the role player universe, and that's going to be over here. As far as pledge levels, we have 84 for the game tiles plus metal tokens, and then you have 59 for just the game plus tiles over here. As far as should you back or should you not, kind of depends on whether you want those extras or not. If you want the extra metal stuff, then you may as well get it on Kickstarter. If you just want the retail copy, then you kind of have to question whether it's worth that extra savings, because you're paying for shipping and you're paying a slightly higher price too. So this one, if you just want the Rift Tile Pack, is more of a question mark. Then it comes down, I think, to getting it first and supporting a publisher. Whereas if you want the Metal Favor tokens, it's more of an incentive. Will it hold its value? Will it not? It depends. Role player games in general have gone both ways. Role play Adventures has heavily held its value, versus games like I don't know, actually. Their games do a generally decent job holding their value if you want the Cartographer's large pack, so it does depend. This could go either way. I think the exclusive items certainly help, so the more exclusive items you're getting, the more likely it is to hold its value here. Moving on to Merchant's Cove Mastercraft. 4,857 backers, $414,000 raised, $415,000 now, 16 days to go. Merchant's Cove Mastercraft, a game that I may or may not have content on before the campaign is over because I got my copy yesterday. Yeah, I got Merchant's Cove Mastercraft yesterday, so I may or may not have time to dive into it and play it properly before the campaign is over. If I do, great. If not, maybe there'll be late pledge content. We'll see. Either way, Merchant's Cove, a game that I thoroughly enjoy, is a game over here, Final Frontier Games. This is basically offering you an expansion to Merchant's Cove, as well as a big box solution. You have Merchant's Cove over here. You have the faction. No, it's not called faction. It's called something else. What's it called? Let's scroll down over here. It is the faction. It is faction. I was right the first time. We have the faction track over here. They're going to add onto the extra board on the bottom, giving you more ways to spread out over there on the bonuses, and then you have four new merchants in the game, plus a fifth if you're backing this on Kickstarter, which is basically Johnny Pack Canton, which is delightful. So what do we have over here? We have 4 different factions, and the video, by the way, the video for Merchant's Cove does a great job going over this. We're gonna have 4 new merchants in the game, and this is Merchant's Cove. The general idea of Merchant's Cove is each merchant has their own asymmetric puzzle as far as how they generate the things that they're going to sell to the various people coming to the ports. So everyone's trying to sell stuff, everyone's generating their own thing, and it's how you manipulate your own little private puzzle with a bit of in-game interaction on the center board, although I don't know how much the faction track mixes that up, but before you get to the faction track, there's a bit of in-game interaction and a lot of managing your own puzzle as you figure out your own little how you generate stuff more efficiently than other players. It's a game of mini-games, the way I put it. But we have the Mushroom Farm over here. The Mushroom Farm is going to be generating, you're going to have a tile placement over here as you try to generate more stuff over there. We have the Hemlock Tromes the Detective, who has overlaid cards. We have these transparent overlay cards. You're going to be trying to match them up properly to solve the cases you need, generate resources there. We have Jacques Finn Greentail, who's going to be diving for pearls, it looks like, as he wanders along the track, moving down here and trying to figure out how to get more pearl-type thingies. And then we have Ava Shortcake, using a Tzolk'in-style mechanism, as we have their pastry chef putting things down on the board as they rotate the unique gears. Don't know what happened there. as they rotate their unique gears on this central mechanism to try to bake the best shortbread possible. This one, honestly, mechanically, this one seems the most intriguing to me, but we'll see. And then, of course, we have the Kickstarter exclusive, Johann Spiltin Pack, the Game Maker, who is basically Johnny Pack Canton from Merchant's Cove, who is involved in his own little puzzle of his Kickstarter exclusive character and his own little puzzle as far as how he generates things. So we have 5 new merchants so far. Then we have the Faction Festival, which is going to be the new aspect of the game itself, adding send your assistants to the festival to volunteer and gain rewards. And then we have all that basically over here. Anything else going on? We also have the big box, which we'll get to shortly. Here's a good example of seeing the game designer in progress over here. Cleverly build your tableau of possible actions as you meld and rotate domino cards to create games. Seems intriguing. They can't wait to play as him. And then we have over here, we have Why Back Now, Kickstarter exclusive, MSRP savings, help make the game a reality, and that is basically what we have. So, $69 for the Mastercraft base game over there. That includes the Kickstarter exclusive content as well. $79 for the base game, which again includes the Kickstarter exclusive content, and $214 for absolutely everything over here, which does not include the big box, but includes all the previous available content over here. We have the Oracle, the Dragon, the whatever this one is, the Innkeeper. We have all of that. We have the Secret Stash. All these things available for $214. That is not the all-in though, because in addition to all these pledges, the stretch goals that we're slowly unlocking throughout the course of the game, we also have, let's scroll down, I actually want to see the stretch goals. So print on the Diver Bag, the Oath of Wisdom Paladin, the Lawyers, 12 Townsfolk cards, the 420 Oath of Exaltation, the 5th Staff action, all these things. And over here we have the Mega Box from Game Trays, which is basically going to be a $39 box to store absolutely everything, including sleeve cards over here. If you order the Mega Box, you'll receive all the content pre-packed, which is nice. I mean, it depends on who you are. Some people don't want that. I absolutely would, because for me it saves me all the time, effort, and energy of getting everything together, and I don't have to worry about throwing out extra boxes. It's not hard to put out extra boxes, but it does always feel a bit wasteful, and while I'm not overly particular about it, if I can save it, I'm happy to do so. Then we have the Thief player board, the Thief miniature, all these things over here. This is included for free in the Mega Box over here. The Alchemist Decanter, oh my gosh, there's tons of things over here being added. The Secret Stash, just showing you the various extra things you can buy for the game for the various characters. And then a whole bunch of reviews, previews, all those things. That is everything going on in Merchant's Cove. Should you back it, should you not? Well, this is a whole lot. Okay. Should you back it, should you not? Well, it kind of depends. Merchant's Cove is a game that in general, Merchant's Cove, if you look at the original campaign, did a decent job holding its value. It depends on where, it depends on why. It does sell for roughly what people paid for it. Overall, it has been well liked enough that it has held its value, while also received enough mixed reviews that it has also not done amazingly well in holding its value. One thing that is generally set up with the game is you kind of want that Secret Stash, you kind of want the extra content. The base game alone is not enough to keep you invested and interested in the game, and so I do recommend if you are getting the game, more stuff is good. That $69 price point to get all the stuff for the Mastercraft, it seems like a great price point for a whole new content, as well as 4 extra expansions, as well as a Kickstarter expansion over there. So overall, solid savings, exclusive content, it checks all those boxes. And then if you get the Mega Box as well, well, that's like, something that's going to be hard to get your hands on, and lets you store the game more easily. I would say this is one that is not necessarily guaranteed to hold its value, but will do a decent job holding its value. Again, even the past one, it's premium enough, it has enough people who like it, that I think this one will do a decent job holding roughly par. You might lose a drop in it, but I think it's a relatively safe back, and if you're interested in the content, I recommend going ahead and getting it on Kickstarter. Moving on from there to Forsaken. Of 1,800 backers, $270,000. We have, like, this past week has been... There's been a lot of campaigns this past week that have crossed the $100,000 mark, while being very few to none that have crossed the $500,000 mark. It's been a lot of like, hey, we have 10 campaigns that are between 100 and 500,000. Enjoy, take your pick. But Forsaken, 1,800 backers. Should have grabbed water. I should have grabbed water. 1,800 backers, 17 days to go. Forsaken is coming to you from Game Trays Labs. This is from Game Trays. This is Game Trays Lab, which means this is their first official game. Game Trays has furnished 190 plus different games with Game Trays, but this is the first time that they are doing their own game with Game Trays. They have a lot of FAQ stuff that are very worth asking. By the way, completely unrelated, but going back to Rivet Wars, if you're a previous owner of Rivet Wars, I recommend reading the FAQ, because there's a lot of content that's really helpful for previous owners. Forgot to tell you that. Back to Game Trays over here, Forsaken. They also have an FAQ, including the fact that they touch upon this. This is a fun little question. They're like, hey, sometimes I've seen Game Trays with thinner plastic. What's up with that? And will this have thinner plastic? And they're like, hey, sometimes we don't have final control over every single decision involved in making a Game Trays component, and so sometimes we do get thinner plastic, and it's not our call. Sorry about that. This is not going to be one of those times, because this is all our decision, which I appreciate, because honestly, Game Trays in general, when I see Game Trays stamped on something, I'm like, that's awesome, I like that. And then occasionally I've seen Game Trays stamped on something, and I'm like, but also once or twice you've had not great Game Trays, and so yeah, I mean, kudos to them for the fact that this is their own campaign, kudos for addressing that. Honestly, I think game trays probably should just not make game trays that are thinner plastic ever, and they may already be aware of that, because they're a brand, and like, I want to see their name and be completely certain that I'm getting a good tray as opposed to 95% certain. Anyways, sorry for the advice, Noah. I'm sure you've come to that conclusion already. I'm just talking out loud here. Anyways, Noah is the person who owns Game Trays, founded by Noah Edelman in 2013, so that's why I said that. On to the fourth. Anyways, Game Trays. Forsaken. Forsaken is a sandbox adventure, an open world sandbox adventure. If you see this game and you're thinking, I don't know what you're thinking, but if you're thinking, what's it called? Oh my gosh. Western Legends. If you're thinking Western Legends, you are correct. This is Western Legends and then some. It's not Western Legends. It's most thematically similar to Western Legends, but add a whole bunch more, add a whole bunch of game trays, add a whole bunch more content, add a whole bunch more backstory and story in general, and narrative interactions. Add the fact that this plays ridiculously well at 2 players. I love this game at 2 players. It's my favorite way to play this game is at 2 players. I played it at 2 and 3. I don't believe I've played it at 4, and I have not played it solo, although I do want to play it solo. But overall, Forsaken is a sandbox adventure in which you have your character, you have your backstory, you have your chain of events that you're trying to go through, you have a choose your own adventure on the backstory, and then you have to start going through the process of trying to win the game by getting either most points or completing your backstory and triggering endgame. Either way is going to trigger endgame, and you're going to try to see who won, who accomplished their goals, and who ultimately is the best Forsaken person on this planet, or set of 3 planets as the case may be. You have 3 planets you're jumping back and forth between. You're trying to pursue your own goals, hunt different bounties, achieve your objectives, interact with the various personas in the game. A whole lot going on here in a game that I thoroughly enjoyed. Again, for me, I prefer it most at 2 because I find that this does have the sandbox game problem of I care more about my turn and I don't care about your turn. And so the more people in the game, the more your turn is happening and the less my turn is happening. But at 2 players, I really, really enjoyed it. At 3, I liked it. At 2, I really enjoyed it. And solo, I'm intrigued by. I think 2-player might be my favorite player count, but we'll see. Ultimately, there's enough reading in the game that having 2 players back and forth helping each other can help you there. But that's basically what's going on in Forsaken. Forsaken has a bunch of content over here. We have $129 for the base game of Forsaken on a value of $189, but we'll see. And then we have $179 for the Forsaken All-In. Is that the smallest pledge? Yeah, $129 for the smallest base game pledge, $179 for the All-In, which gives you the Shaman and the Stray expansion, and the Prisoner and the Peon expansion, and then $194 if you also want the Foreteller app as well. I'm very intrigued by that because I like having Foreteller apps, but it also slows down the reading, and as if you may have noticed as you watch this video, I'm not as good with the whole slowing down the reading part, so we'll see. Either way, but that's Foreteller. I like Foreteller, I really do. When they have sound effects mixed in, I really do enjoy their app, and I'm willing to have things slow down a bit for the sake of having the, you know, the dusty little thing floating in the background and a few stray shots and someone bashing into a bar and drinks knocking over. If you have that degree of immersion, slowing down a drop is not the hardest thing. Then we have all the goals. We went through a bit of the stretch goals. We kind of scrolled through everything quickly. As far as stretch goals, we have 99,000, an extra character, we have new spoils cards, we have new class module, we have social goals, we have more goals, daily unlocks, cartel muscle, new gear for the asset deck, new personas, again, just new things spread out across the course of the game. And then this is the core box offering as far as, again, you're getting game trays baked into this product, like left, right, and center. You're getting a whole bunch of characters. You have the 6 characters, plus the stretch goals. That's what's going on over here. We have 18 story cards, 60 feat cards, 72 encounter cards, a whole bunch of content for this game, 99 reserve cards, we have class modules. Ooh, this is a fun thing that I haven't actually gotten to play, but the class modules I'm very intrigued by. We have spoils and solo and standees and battle dice and just a ton of different things all wrapped nicely into this deluxeified, beautiful looking, highly accessible box. Again, it's game trays. I'm excited. We'll see. And then 6 character miniatures as well to the game. Then from there we have the Shaman and the Stray expansion, which gives you $25. Again, this is baked into the all-in pledge, but you have 2 new characters as well and more stuff, more characters, more encounter cards, more reserve cards. We have the Prisoner and the Peon. So we have over there, that brings you to 10 characters plus 1 stretch goal. That's 11 total characters so far. If you watched my review, I believe there's going to be a 12th character. We shall see. Then we have the Foreteller app over here. And that's what we have as far as this giant open world sandbox adventure with 130,000 words of story and a whole lot of stuff happening over here. Anyways, so this campaign page is not even remotely close to over. There's so much content. There's so much, oh my gosh, so much stuff. I'm not going to read this all. I'm not. It's way too much. Backstories and all the characters, tons of things. This is a campaign page that has absolutely been built out. I do want to highlight this. Okay, this is very cool. Over here, to ensure transparency, we offer the following pledges to you, the backer. This should be higher up on the page. I feel bad that they didn't put it higher up on the page because this should be like top, front, and center. We guarantee our final shipping rates will be no more than 25% different than our estimates. We will cover any excess. So the shipping rates, if they're estimating it at $25 for the base pledge or $28 for the all-in, which they are currently over here, they're saying, hey, it's not going to be more than 25% difference, so that all-in, and this is where I don't know if they're counting from within or from without, meaning 25% of or whatever, but let's just go with whatever. 28 divided by 4 is going to be 7, so that's going to be $35 is the maximum shipping price you should pay. Anything over that, they will cover. That's very cool. That $35 is based on the continental US all-in, for the record. And then we will never ask you for extra money after you've placed your order through our pledge manager. Again, very cool of them to guarantee. The question with all these things is what actually happens if they don't guarantee that, but like what happens to someone, a company that guarantees it and then has to anyway. So it's an interesting guarantee to make, but I like the process of this. This is something, again, speaking as a Gamefound employee, this is something we actually, Gamefound is recently doing, the concept of a stable pledge, same general idea. I'm for the concept, very intriguing. I wish they put it at the top of the top of the page over there, but that is what we have over there. So that's that, and then we go to the should we back it, back to there. Okay, great. Whole lot of stuff on the page. Should you back it? Should you not? Overall, I think yes. If you're interested in this game, I think it'll hold its value. The combination of the game, the combination of the Gamefound, not the Gamefound, the combination of the Game Trays limited content, as well as the price point and the sheer amount of stuff you're getting in this game, I do believe that this is one that is worth backing as far as the price point versus what you're able to get for later. This is an expensive game with a whole lot of stuff, but it's an expensive game with inserts, with a ton of content, with a giant big box. I think what you're getting for this game, I mean, even the $179 plus the $28 shipping for a giant big box with game trays, plus additional content in terms of expansions over there, which I hope fit into the base box, but I realize now I don't know if they do. I really, really hope they do. I kind of feels like a bit of a shame to have a really, really cool game tray situation and solution, but not fitting into the base box. I wonder if that's in the FAQ. I hope it's in the FAQ. Will the expansion content, dun 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 dun, I don't know. I'm curious over there. I am curious if the expansion content will fit into the base game box. I really hope it does. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't, but I do hope it does. Anyways, yeah, this is Forsaken. I think that overall it will go, I think overall it will hold its value. It's an expensive game, factor all that stuff in, but there's enough limited content and it's a good game and it's one that I think will be sought after. Moving on to Quodd Heroes, 2nd edition. Quodd Heroes, a gorgeously produced scenario-based board game for 1 to 6 players, 1100. This is a longer video. This is a return to our longer videos. It's been a while because we have like 5 more campaigns to go through. 5 more after, including Quodd Heroes. Anyway, Quodd Heroes, 2nd edition. This is a reprint campaign, well, it's a reprint and a relaunch. It's a 2nd edition and a relaunch. They canceled the last relaunch and they are back over here. 1,100 backers, $154,000 raised. This is the 2nd edition of Quodd Heroes, a delightful game that I really thoroughly enjoy. I highly recommend watching my video on the game because I just like this game a lot. But over here, Quodd Heroes is a game of different scenarios, whether solo, competitive, cooperative, all that stuff over there, as you try to tumble around the board using your quad, using their unique abilities, using the combination of different things going on in the game to try to figure out how you can tumble the right way, the best way, the fastest way, the most ideal way, better than the other players. That might sound less interesting, but it's a game of trying to take in various options and inputs and trying to figure out how you can manage your best output as you go through the game. Anyways, I really enjoyed this one. This is one that I really enjoyed the original 1st edition. I've played it extensively, and this is the 2nd edition, which also includes a 1st edition upgrade pack as well. For $50, you have the 1st edition upgrade pack that does not include miniatures. They do have an option to buy miniatures if you want the painted miniatures, because the 2nd edition does come with painted miniatures, so if you want those over there. We have $138 for the 2nd edition deluxe over here. We have $190 for the gameplay all-in bundle, because they have a solo co-op add-on. Let's see if we can find that over here. There's a whole lot of stuff you're getting over here. This is an expensive game. It's not a cheap game, but it gives you a lot of fun things. I believe they have plans for a retail edition that will give you a stripped-down version of like the amount of content you get, but it will be far cheaper. So if you want to dive into Quodd Heroes and you don't want to get it on Kickstarter, I believe there are eventual plans for a retail edition of the game. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm saying I believe there are plans for it. Then we have over here, as far as the pledge levels, come on, show me some pledge levels. Show me some pledge levels. So over here we have the Hero All-In, the content. We have the Quodd Heroes 2nd edition. We have the Heroic Journey solo co-op campaign box, and we have the 3D walls and tokens add-on for $199. Again, this game is not cheap. It just gives you a lot of stuff over here. And then for $569, this is completely over the top, and you're primarily playing for this ridiculous over-the-top insert, but that over-the-top insert, the Super Deluxe Collector's Crate, is going to basically run you like $370 for that crate over there, but it's very, very cool if you want to check out the actual crate. Let's see if we can find it. We have a basic crate. We have a deluxe organizer over here. So if you want a basic organizer over here, we have that for $79, and then we have this, the over-the-top crate for Epic Adventures. Again, just very, very cool as far as what's going on here. Looks very accessible. Looks like it makes the game easier. This is like a trove chest, just with like 3 times the price of a trove chest. Yeah, lots going on here. Very intrigued. I want that. I really do. Whether or not I get it, that's a different conversation. It depends on how much holds 1st edition plus 2nd edition add-ons. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. This is one that I definitely want, but I don't know if I play this game enough to justify it. Although maybe I'd play the game more if I had that. I don't know. Either way, this is Quodd Heroes. Should you back it? Should you not? Short version of this one is Quodd Heroes is one that has not done a great job holding its value overall. It's a great game. If you want the game, I do recommend hunting it down, either on the second-hand market or on the Kickstarter. But the previous edition has not done a great job holding its value. It's done most of its value. So if you bought it for like $80, you could get like $70 back or $65 back. So you do not lose a ton, but it's one that you're not making your money back on fully, or at least the 1st edition edition you didn't. This is one of those games that has a lot of people who really, really like the game, myself included, but it's got a lot of people who also don't table the game that much, and it doesn't have the hugest following. The retail edition might change the game. I would say if you're interested in the game, you can either get it on the second market, you can get the retail edition if or when that shows up, if or when, and then alternatively you can get it on Kickstarter over here where there are a bunch of options. I do recommend, and I'm recommending this without having played it, I do recommend that solo and co-op scenario book over there. That's going to give you an easy way to jump in and play the game on a regular basis both by yourself as well as learning more of the mechanics and getting those firmly entrenched so that when you table with your friends you know everything that's going on, and also this way you can destroy them because you'll know the game better. Don't actually recommend that part quite as much, but hey, you can try. Anyways, that is Quodd Heroes. Great game, highly recommend the game. Overall, just I adore it. Moving on to Elric, Rise of the Young Kingdoms. 316 backers, $36,000 raised, 18 days to go. Elric, Rise of the Young Kingdoms is based on the novels by Michael Moorcock, and this is a game of Elric and your various factions over here trying to make their way into the center city and sack the capital of this area here. You're going to be going through trying to go through a degree of card play and cooperation as you try to figure out how to move your way into the center city. You try to figure out how to move your way into the center city as you go through multiple rounds of play. In between each round, bidding on various bonuses you'll get, including Elric, who has just completely can just kill anything he touches. And you're trying to figure out how to manage your limited resources, your limited troops, as you move your way in, how to manage the card play, which cards you draw as spoils after each combat, which decks you draw them from, because I'm going to give you different options, different ways to modify. Some cards will be used for combat, some cards will be used for the bidding aspect, but you're trying to work together with your opponents. Eventually, there being only one winner left. This is semi-co-op in its gameplay in the sense that you kind of have to work together to survive, but ultimately there's only going to be one person who actually survives, makes the way to the center, and has the most, well, winningness. Winningness is being the key term. Pledge levels over here are going to run you $77 for the White Wolf Pledge and $102 for the Eternal Champions, which gives you the Elric Raiders of the Young Kingdom expansion set as well. And I think that price point as well is one of the aspects. I think the combination of semi-co-op and the price point are where it's a little hard to sell overall. Like, it's doing 361 backers, it is funded, but it's also 317 backers, it is funded, but it's not knocking out of the park. And I think the price point plus the gameplay style, semi-co-op is always a hard sell overall. There are always people who are fine with it and always people who are a little more limited at it. But this, as far as the game itself, as far as should you back or should you not, I do think this is one that is less likely to hold its value. In general, a low demand on the Kickstarter page does translate into a low demand on the aftermarket as well. And combined with the price point over here, I think this is going to likely fall into that category. Moving on to the Fox in the Forest, the Fox Experiment. I almost said the Fox in the Forest, different game. The Fox Experiment from Pandasaurus Games, designed by Elizabeth Hargrave and somebody else whose name is blocked by this button over here. 3,313 backers, 314 backers, $270,000 raised, 18 days to go. This is for the Fox Experiment. It's a roll and write game, kind of, but like more. It's more than your typical roll and write. This is a roll and write that has a full game stuff, full game board, full game box, all that stuff going on as you try to figure out how to basically craft. It's the Fox Experiment. It's based on the fact that they were breeding foxes to get desired outputs and more docileness and more friendliness and all these different things, and it's based on that concept. And so you're going to be picking pairs of foxes to breed, and then rolling dice to generate the various traits you want on their next descendants, and then those next descendants go back into the pool where you can use them to descend, where you can use them to breed your next set of foxes. So you're basically breeding foxes the entire time as you go through the game, trying to figure out which pairings will get you the best output as you go for a variety of goals and try to accomplish your objectives in the Fox Experiment. So basically a roll and write, but a roll and write with like a whole lot more going on than a typical roll and write. Looks very compelling overall. The base game is going to be $55 for the retail edition of the game, at which point in general I recommend just getting it at retail. If you want the retail edition, get it at retail, it'll be cheaper. But if you want the Kickstarter exclusive edition, which is going to give you all the unlocked stretch goals, if we scroll down over here, the Kickstarter exclusive is going to give you these extra heat transferred fox meeples, which I highly recommend, the 4 metal tokens with enamel coloring. So again, you're basically just getting the same game, just with upgraded components, which if you are interested in the game, again, wait for retail and get it cheaper, or get it on Kickstarter with those extras. Or you can get the add-on over here, which is Kickstarter exclusive, the 5 to 6 player expansion, giving you more content for this. I don't know how well this game plays 5 to 6 players. I don't know if it's more turn-based or more simultaneous, which is going to very much change whether 5 to 6 players is a good adjustment where you have more people who can play at the same time versus more people who are slowing down the game. And then we have the Neophene mats, which is enough for the base game and 5 to 6 player expansion, and supposedly these might fit into the box. They're looking into that. That's a big deal for me. For me, that determines whether I go for those or not. I don't get any Neophene mats that don't fit into the box. I just find, unless it's part of an all-in pledge or something, but I find I don't get them tabled quite as much when that happens. But we'll see. I'm intrigued by the Neophene mats. If they fit in the box, I'm interested. Otherwise, not really. The all-in combo will save you $10 if you get the Fox Experiment, plus the Fox Experiment 5 to 6 player expansion, plus the Neophene mats, which means the Neophene mats are basically $10, which is a great deal if you want, well, depends what you want over here. But if you want everything else, it makes those Neophene mats just cheaper. But that's everything you got as far as the Fox Experiment. Should you back it? Will it hold its value? All of that stuff. I think the Kickstarter version might actually hold its value over here. The Kickstarter exclusive version edition is going to give you enough extras, enough premium stuff over here that I think this one, especially at the price point, at $60, I think this is more likely to hold its value, especially if the game is good. Certainly not a guarantee, but with 3,300 backers, there's certainly a demand for this game, and you combine that with the exclusive content and the not that different price point of the game, I think you can safely get your money back on the Kickstarter version of the game if you find it's not for you. Highly recommend not backing the retail edition. If you want that, I'd recommend getting it at retail. Then from there, we have Atlas Lost Rise of the New Sovereigns. 1,000 backers, $108,000 raised. Atlas Lost Rise of the New Sovereigns is giving me a bunch of keywords that make me very interested in the game, and yet I'm probably not backing it. The reason for it is those keywords are Atlas Lost, and if you watch the video, they go into this, but this is a game that has games like Terraforming Mars, and they listed another game that I like that I don't remember, but Terraforming Mars and Beyond the Sun and one other game they mentioned, and all three of those games are like great games that I really like, and I'm like, if it has those elements combined into some cool system, that Sid Meier's Civilization, Terraforming Mars and Beyond the Sun, mixing all those concepts together in a game that looks very, very, very cool. And it does look very cool. The components look great, the video looks great, the gameplay looks like it might be great. I am interested in the game, make no mistake. I also just don't see enough content from... They do have content on the page, but they don't have enough content from the people who I normally watch or get a better sense of their opinions. And so I'm having a harder time seeing if this game is or isn't for me. Not meant to be a critique. Obviously, I'm biased in that conversation as a content creator when I say they didn't use content creators. Inherently, that is a self-interested statement. But I'm trying to take it at face value without me reading into, like, I have plenty of games to cover, I'm fine in that sense. But yeah, either way, tactical games, so I'm interested in the game, Atlas Lost, Rise of the New Sovereigns, I am certainly interested in the game, it certainly looks cool. The price point is where it comes to the point where it's like, okay, do I jump in on this and take a risk, or do I not? It's not a bad price point, I just don't know. Very compelled, we'll see. But $64 for the standard pledge over here, and $86 for the, $88 for the complete pledge, giving you the Atlas, the Lost Nation campaign expansion, if you want that for the game. Again, I highly recommend watching the video. The game does look good, I am interested in the game. I just don't know if it's a game that will be absolutely amazing or a game that will be a total waste of time. I don't know. Probably shouldn't be a total waste of time. That's a bit extreme. And you could try it on Tabletop Simulator in case you're interested, or Tabletopia, I believe. Tabletop Simulator over there. But yeah, looks very cool. Very intrigued. As far as should you back it, will hold its value. Hard to say. Again, not a ton of following on this game. It does look cool. It could be amazing. Kind of depends if it picks up enough critical mass when it arrives that people are like, oh my gosh, that game is great. This one definitely falls into the risk category. Could go either way. My expectation is it probably wouldn't hold its value, but it could go either way. And then lastly, we have Rise and Fall, 645 backers, $70,000 raised. 31 days to go. Rise and Fall is a great game. I highly, highly recommend this game with the caveat and the context that I do recommend this game, but I recognize it's expensive, and that's probably why it's not seeing the following that I'd love it to see. We have Rise and Fall, the video game, for $9, which is great over there. We have Rise and Fall, the base game, for $60 for the base game over there. We have the Settlers Pledge, which is going to be $91, one physical copy, plus any stretch goals over there. What do we have over here? Does not include the social media. So the $60 version of the game does not include any stretch goals. The $91 version of the game does include stretch goals, and the $127 gives you the Clan Masters Pledge, and then for $163 you get 2 copies of the game, which means you can play with 8 players. So yeah, a whole lot of things over here, but definitely expensive, and I understand that is going to be a barrier to entry. I've had the good opportunity to actually play this game, and this is one of the things I talk about in general. Like even going back to Atlas Lost, yeah. Sometimes when you play a game, it can be the difference between anything. So I'll look at a campaign and I'll be like, hey, this is expensive and that's a problem. But if I've played the game, I'm like, it's expensive and that's a problem, but also I love it. And so that's just a practical reality of, I haven't played Atlas Lost. It might be incredible. I have played Rise and Fall, and it is incredible. It is expensive, although I will say these handcrafted meeples are absolutely delightful. The prototype I had was delightful. I can't speak of the final production value, but overall the prototype was one of the better prototypes I've had in terms of the sheer production value of the prototype. You're going to be constructing a unique 3D board every single time. There's going to be a bit of a playing down tiles construction aspect of the game, which gives you a unique map every time you play, and then you're trying to use your resources, you're trying to use your units by playing cards to activate all units of a single type, which gives you a constant puzzle in the game of, are you trying to have the variety of having different things happening, or you're trying to focus on specific units and taking advantage of their strengths, but by doing so you're cutting out other things. It's basically deck construction, deck weeding, where as you play the game, you're trying to figure out which things you're focusing on, which things you're giving the most attention and energy to as you play through it. Very solid game, very much enjoy it. Again, there's different options as far as the pledges over here, whether you get those screen printed meeples or not. Over here we have the 3D meeples over here, the screen printed, where's the other? Here we go, the Clan Master. Over here, the Clan Master has the UV printed meeples, which, again, that's the coolest stuff over here, but certainly is more expensive as far as the actual game. They have lots of add-ons and stretch goals unlocked, lots of other extra things being added to the gameplay. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. As far as should you back it, should you not, it definitely falls into the risk category. Again, despite the fact that I played it, despite the fact that I like it a lot, with 645 backers, there's not a lot of demand in this one. And that, also, I do think the box art does not look great, by the way. I think the game looks great. I think the box art looks like very, very, I don't know, 2004, something like that, as far as the style and whatnot. The art looks great. It's more the font. The font is what's putting me off. Anyways, but overall, I really like the game. I think it's a great game. I think if you back this game, you will probably enjoy it. If you think this is a game that is your style of game, I think you will probably find it's your style of game. It's a very, very, very cleverly well done system that I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm excited to dive back into. Also, yes, it is absolutely expensive. Take that into account. And because it's expensive and because there's not a ton of demand, it's one that may not hold its value, which puts it into that middle zone of, like, hey, if you back this, understand you may not get your money back if you find this is not a game for you. You have to find someone who's willing to pay that $132 for what is basically a $60, $70 game in terms of the table production and presence, but it's just because of the components, because of the screen printing, because of the wooden meeples left, right, and center, it definitely goes up in price. So I recommend this game, but I do think it's one that's probably not a good back as far as holding its value or not. Which brings us to the end of the show, which means we get to pick of the week time. This is a longer episode. Wow. Pick of the week time. This video is going to be late, by the way, for the record. I'm just saying that. It's going to be late. Anyways, up to pick of the week. Pick of the week is where we get into the 2 picks of the week, which are going to be the games that my most interested campaign, as well as the game I think is most likely to hold its value. Now, as far as the game that's most likely to hold its value, I think that's an easier choice today, and I think I'm going to start with Forsaken. Forsaken is the game that I think is most likely to hold its value as far as the price of the actual game versus how it's going to do in the secondhand market. It's definitely a gamble to a degree. This is a big, expensive box, and you don't have a direct comparison to another title. Western Legends is a direct comparison, but it's a cheaper game, so it's hard to say for sure. I do think Forsaken is a fairly safe back, though. Just the content, the gameplay, all those things, I think it's a safe back. As far as my pick of the week in terms of interest, that's where it gets a lot harder. I'm actually going to eliminate Quodd Heroes because I believe I chose it in a prior week when they had their last campaign. I love Quodd Heroes. I'm very excited for it. It would be my pick of the week, but I picked it already, so I'm going to eliminate that for the sake of just having that. At which point, I'm going to give props to Forsaken and to Rise and Fall. Forsaken will eliminate because I already got the pick of the week in terms of value pick, so I'll take Rise and Fall. Rise and Fall is an excellent game. Honestly, there's a lot of good games this week. There's a lot of good games as far as my personal interest, a lot of options, both games I've played and haven't played, that very much have me pulled in. I've been doing very well at not backing a lot of games for a while, and September is the month where I cave left, right, and center. And that is everything. That's going to be the whole to back or not to back. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate all of you being here, and as always, I hope you have a good one. How many tickles does an octopus need before it laughs? Tentacles.